Okay, so there's the first light mocked up. Obviously it's flashing a bit fast because the other indicators aren't connected. So I've cut out some holes in the housing to fit those holders. Let's see if I can. So that's just the tail light and indicator. Go around and just press the brake light from inside. So that should do the job. And now I think I'll have to weld on a flange that goes around the perimeter of that housing so it can screw through the lens end holes. So we've got 3. Bought some stainless crosshead screws to go in. M4s, if that's of interest. But yeah, I'm surprised there isn't as any real bleed through. I guess the LEDs are quite directional. Anyway, that's it for the moment. Press it on and off. On and off. Okay, so the last test I wasn't that impressed by the difference between the tail and the brake lights. So I've taken about ½ an inch off the depth of this, so the bulb actually sticks out closer inside the housing. If I can get my long stick right. I think that's definitely better. I'll put I'm going to weld a flange on so I can mount and screw it in position properly. And I'll also weld in at the same time a little barrier to stop the bleed between the brake tail light into the indicator housing. Okay, so I've welded in a little blocker between the bulbs inside, and with those spaced out, that's really nice. I've also drilled out the 2 outer holes and threaded the inner. So you can see I've got this quite chunky flange welded on now. I did start off with a very thin one, but it just melted and distorted the second the TIG put some heat on it. So it's a bit oversized, and I'll get some fiberglass filler and just fill to create a nice smooth surface for it to bolt onto. I'll probably put some riv nuts in these end ones because I don't really like the idea of stainless steel fixings in aluminium due to corrosion. And also these were really stiff, so just with a little bit of heat with my heat gun, they softened enough to push in and then sort of turn to lock into place. So that's that. So that's going to be really robust. See, I'll tidy up the wiring later on. Yeah, obviously that's wobbling around a bit, and now that's in. I guess that's definitely going to help me define where my frame can go, or whether I have to cut down this a little bit maybe once it's, well, now it's in. Yeah, we'll see. Now rinse and repeat, make another one for the other side. Oh, one quite neat little thing. So that's the gauges when it's charging. It's just giving it a bit of a top up. It's dropped just with all the messing around. I don't really like to leave batteries below 40%. But yeah, it's quite a nice graphic. All right, and that's the second one done. It's the same. Real surprise. Yeah, everything worked fine. There's still not a massive difference between the tail light and the brake light, which is a bit odd. Maybe I'll try a different brand of bulb. They definitely are brighter You notice the difference, but it's not huge. Okay, just to finish off the rear light assemblies, so I've just drilled out and fitted some little M4 rivnets, countersunk the aluminium so they sit flush, and I'll probably end up just fitting a foam gasket so that'll sit on the inside of the body. Yeah, you can see the little notches that I've cut out for the bulb assemblies. Not much else to say on that really. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do the boot hinges. So it was suggested to me, and I had been thinking, just find some alternate hinges. So searching for boot hinges on eBay, came up with these. So they've got a nice height and fore aft adjustment in them. These are actually off a Triumph TR7. So fitting, it might be easy to show on this side. So these should, fit onto the boot, and then I'll just put a little plate onto that rear bar. But I've spent far too long just sanding this rear boot inner to sit nice and snug in the hole with the aperture, and it also sits down on the flange face. But thinking about it, I should space it up a little bit for the seal, but there's not a lot of space. Actually, I'll probably use a push-on one that goes, you know, like a push-on thing with a rubber seal on the side. So that should be fine. And actually, there's a bit too much of a bow on the inner skin here, there. So I don't know if you can see that. If I push it down, it will fit. So I'll probably put a steel bar going across between a couple of plates, strengthener plates inside. And then that's why you always got to think several steps ahead. That bar was getting in the way, I think, of where the hinges want to go. And I'll also come up with another couple of positions for the rear boot actuator. Seems silly not to hang on to that function because it'll unlatch the boot and lift it at the same time. Should be fine. But yeah, other than that, there's a bit of a worry about the battery. So it was losing a little bit more charge than I'd like, and when I went to charge it, it didn't want to charge. I shut down the car, disconnected the battery, connected it back up, and it took a charge. But when it finished charging, it wouldn't charge again. So it's showing there's some sort of imbalance error internally to the battery. So that's another fun thing to figure out later on. But if I disconnect it completely, like I say, plug it straight in, it will take a charge. So I'll do that workaround for the moment. I don't really want to think about having to dismantle the battery and check for individual cells or whatever the problem is going to be. It's a problem for not tomorrow, a long time away. I want to get more of the car done before I worry about that sort of thing. Okay, so this is the error. So I've got a BMS AO64 and a 66. So it looks like there are some bricks with varying minimum state of charge. So hopefully it's just a BMS thing. Maybe I've knocked one of my BMS connectors or something like that. Okay, so that one may result in AO64. So that's the AO64. Everything else is kind of whatever, just because things are disconnected, but oh well, more fun. So just mocking up those hinges, just temporarily, just holding that bar in place to flatten out the boot inner skin, and then a bit of a fiddle. That one's dropping a bit for some reason. So luckily I had a couple of scraps of wood exactly the right width on either side, and with those clamped in place, that should do the job. So they're a bit loose, but it keeps dropping down. That one's fallen off. Oh well. But yeah, they'll do the job and maximise the amount of space available around in the boot. There's the boot open. Right, okay, I know I'm jumping around a bit, but it's nice weather and I want to do fiberglass cutting outside while it's, well, just to keep the dust out. So this is the sill panel. It's upside down. So it sits like that. Obviously up to that line down there. We'll see. I've measured laterally from the outside body line here to this pinch weld on the sill. And I'm thinking, my first go anyway, I'm going to put it so it goes onto the bottom of these jack points at the front and rear, and I'll see how it looks. But from this vertical across to there, it's 150mm. So these sills are oversized and designed for bolting onto the SLK floor. So yeah, chop this down and see how it fits. Okay, there's a very slight slant cut because it is supposed to be lower at the front. Well, so shallower, the height of the sill panel, but the originals do have a sort of a kink roughly in the middle where it starts to veer up. So very roughly, that's sitting under the jack points. I think it's too deep. This was my concern. So I'm going to have to look at some more images again, but that bit of bodywork should definitely be smaller than the amount between the trim and the door bottom. And it's about the same now, so I might be able to play tunes with it. It's just whether I have to relocate those jacking points, which would be a royal pain in the backside. And I don't like the fat belly look. So what I think I'll do is shorten it some more. Obviously I'll have to narrow it because it's going to hit the sill. Well, the sill comes out from that seam line. And then I'll have to put a staggered bit that I'll just paint black in stone chip or something. The question is, what do I do about the jacking points? It's whether they sit far enough in that they're not going to be that noticeable. I guess I can try. Well, maybe it doesn't look too bad. I've seen worse. Yeah, I'll check some pictures. So I think the bottom of that tape line is about where I want it. So I guess I've got some issues with the jacking points. I'll show you exactly what they are. So these are secondary jacking points. So these are only when you jack the car up to move the battery. So if I shorten it, I suppose I could shorten it and just have a little bit sticking out. Again, there are holes in there. I think there are special tools that go in there from Tesla, but my jack pads just fit on there. You can see there the normal jacking points. So yeah, so my dilemma, whether I leave them like this, have them poking through some little squared out slots. Obviously a lot of this is going to be more visible, but I think if that's all blacked out, it won't be that visible to the eye. Yeah, I knew this was coming. Just got to figure it out. Something that looks right.